All right, so what that file that we loaded, jQuery, the only thing that it does is that it declares this one object. This one object actually it's a function. You could treat it as an object or a function, and it's a very powerful function. One of the things that what we want to do is we're going to tell it that that wait for the document to be parsed by the browser. Once the browser has parsed the document and has rendered it, and it's nicely ready to go, right? Then call the following function, init. All right, so here's our function init. Right, basically, what it does is that this line here registers an event handler, and tells the browser, hey browser, when you're done loading the document, notify me and call this function init, right? Because what jQuery does is that it's good at is manipulating that document once it's been loaded, right? And we can't really manipulate the document until it has loaded. So we'd like to wait, right? Make sure that the entire document has loaded, especially if it's a very long document. Anyway, so by the time we get here in init, we can be guaranteed that the document has already loaded, has been parsed and rendered. So here we can do an alert. We can say hello from jQuery. So let's reload the page, and indeed it says hello from jQuery. Okay, so jQuery is up and running. We can start manipulating the document and start rendering stuff. All right. Here we could what we can do here is what we would like to be able to do is instead of an alert, we could do a console log. Right? Console log allows us to write the same content, but not as an alert box. It allows us to write to the debugging console. And if we run that, notice that it doesn't show anywhere. The console can be retrieved by going to the inspect. If you right-click, and then you can see the console, and there it is. Hello from jQuery. Right. So we can this is kind of like a debugger, right, where we can see the actual code that it's executing. All right, excellent. So what do we want to do in here? What we want to do is we want to go to this URL. Let's go to this URL. Where is it? We want to go right here. So let's create a variable for that. So var URL. There it is. And then we want to navigate there. We want to retrieve the data and actually have it. So that's very easy. What you can do is you can use one of jQuery's function AJAX. AJAX is a function inside of jQuery that allows you to do what the name suggests. AJAX is an asynchronous JavaScript API for XML. And it allows you to pass in arguments such as, give me the URL you want me to go. Right? Give me who do you want me to go call? Right? This is URL. So this is the the variable. This is the argument. And then if it's successful, right? If the response comes back successful from the server, what do you want me to do? Right? What do I do with the response? What we could do is we could say render movies. Right. So we're gonna pass it to a function called render movies, and these are the response coming from the server. Let's not render it just yet. Let's see if indeed we're getting anything from Omdb. We can do a console log the response. All right, so let's do that. Let's refresh our page, and notice that it printed on the console something very similar that we were getting earlier. No, that looks very, very similar to what we were getting earlier. Right there, right? We're getting the response. We're getting the total results, the actual objects. See that? Okay, so we are retrieving the results. We could try the other one. We could try the other URL. So this is this URL might be we might call it URL get Batman. Batman, right? Let's get the other URL. What was it? What movie was this? I forget. Oh, is that it? Oh, yeah, it was. Okay. So we'll call it that. We'll copy that, and we can say URL get Guardians. And we can do the query. We can use that URL over here. Okay, we refresh the page. Oop, not that one. We refresh the page. Notice that indeed this is the object that we got earlier, right, with Guardians. You see that? Okay. And we can then use these. We can use these this data, right, to render the movie, to display it on the user interface. Let's render a list of movies. All right. So let's do that. And so, for instance, let's get Batman. Let's use Batman here. And what do we want to do? Well, we would like to be able to iterate over the movies, right? And print them one at a time. Let's see if we refresh. Notice that we want to iterate over what? We want to iterate over the search array. Yes? Okay. So let's do that. Let's this over here we can do a for var m in response dot search, right? That's going to iterate over the array of search, right? The search array. We can get each movie will be the sub array sub m, and we can display each individual movie, console log movie. Okay. So if we render, notice that we are printing every movie there, right? Here's the first one, Batman Begins. We have Batman versus Superman, right? Everybody good? Yes. Yeah. So the way AJAX works, right, is that it's like the name suggests, the first A means asynchronous, right? So JavaScript itself cannot have multiple threads running, right? So what it does is that it delegates it on the browser. It says, hey browser, go off and hit this URL, okay? And I can't wait for you. I need to go do other things, right? I need to animate kitties and I have to do all sorts of different things, right? And paint things on the screen. When you're done, when it comes back, when the response comes back, right? Please send the response that comes from the server. Send it to the function render movies, right? So here's where we are configuring a callback, right? This is a very, very common pattern in JavaScript, especially dealing with asynchronous communication, is that I'll give you a callback, and at some point later on, then you'll pass me the data back. And that's the response. This is the object that comes back from the server, already parsed as a JSON object. Yes?
Can you just reiterate what the dot search, where is that coming from?
The dot search. Oh, this one? Oh, yeah. So response, notice that what's coming back from the server is this object right here.
Oh, okay.
Right? And there's an element in there that's the search array, right? And so that's it. So there's the response. There's a search array which we're iterating over. Okay. All right. So what else? What we really want to do is display this in maybe in a table or something, right? On the screen. So what we'd like to be able to do maybe, right, is on the index page. Maybe create a table where we can display this content. Maybe table, and maybe we have a header, t-head, where we might have a row, and that row might have multiple headings. The first one might be the title, and let's have also the IMDb. IMDb ID. And the actual output, we're going to put it in tbody. Right. So we like to display the content in that tbody. Right? Okay. So somehow from JavaScript, we're going to have to inject into tbody the data that's coming back. I'm going to give it an ID so that I can uniquely identify this element on the document. I will call it results. Okay. All right. So from JavaScript, I can get a hold of this. And say, fetch me the results from the document using the ID results. So the hash means ID. Right? So pattern match the document looking for an element whose ID is results. And grab it back for me. That's one of the great things about jQuery. That's where it gets the name, query. We are passing a predicate. This is a predicate like a SQL query, and says pattern match, query the document with this predicate, and bring me back anything that matches. Right? It could have been more than just one. It could have been multiple elements that matched. Now we have the results. What do we want to do? Well, let's see. What we want to do. What we want to do is generate what? Generate a whole bunch of table rows in here, right? In this tbody, we want to generate a whole bunch of table rows. One table row per movie, and one table column, one for the title, and one for the IMDb. Yes? So let's do that. From app.js, we'll create a new table row. Again, using jQuery. It's boring having to type jQuery all the time. Right? It's 6 letters. One of them is a capital letter. So there's an alias for us who are lazy. And instead of jQuery, you can use the alias $. $sign is an alias to jQuery. Okay. So anyway, so that function. So jQuery can retrieve things from the document, and it can write to the document. Right? It can read elements from the document, and it create brand new elements in the document. To create an element to the document, you use an actual HTML tag element, tr, like that. Boom! Now we have a tr. It's not yet in the document. It's not yet there. It's only in memory. It only lives in variable tr for now. We haven't yet added it. Okay. What do we want to do in that tr? Well, we need to put 2 columns. Right. So let's create a column. Let's create a column. Yes. And what do we want to put in the column? In the column, we want to add the movie.title. Yes? And now that we have the column with the title in it, I want to append that column. I want to append it to the row. Yes? Everybody good? All right, so we have our first column into our first row. Yes? Let's do the same thing with the second column. Yes?
Will that escape, say, movie title is called H1 title plus H1?
Yes.
It will actually.
Yeah. It will. If it's HTML, it'll parse it as HTML and it'll embed it. If you know it's HTML, you might want to and you don't want to do any additional. You might want to instead use HTML. Right, so it parses as HTML, right? And I'm not going to do any more operations. Append allows you to just keep appending indefinitely. Let's do the second row, the second column. Let's create another column. I'm going to use the same variable. And I'm going to append the movie IMDb API, IMDb ID. What's it called? Like that. It has to match exactly. Has to match exactly. JavaScript is case sensitive, and we're going to add that new row column to the row. Okay, now we have a whole row that has 2 columns. Yes. Now we need to add the row we just created with the 2 columns. We need to add it to the results, right? And so we need to go results dot append the tr, and we're doing this in a loop, right? We do this in a loop. So presumably we're going to do this 10 times every time. Okay. All right. So let's try this out. So there it is. So those are the titles in the IMDb that came back from the remote server. Okay. So this is data that lives elsewhere. This is not in our database, right? It's in somebody else's database, and we've been able to retrieve just the first 10 with the IMDb. And presumably, what we'd like to be able to do is, if I click any one of these, right, I like to be able to look at the details. Right? Okay. Let's only look at be able to just retrieve one of these, right, and then render a details page down below. Right? We'll talk about how to link the 2 together a little later, right? But just so that we practice what we just did, right? Let's practice it again, right? Maybe with a simpler example. Let's go back to the index and create under the table. Maybe this could be h2 search results, and down below we could render h2 details. Okay, movie details. Right, and how do we want to render that? Well, we could say maybe we can have an h3. And want to render maybe the title. Maybe we want to render the poster as an image. We'll call this as an image, and this will be the poster. Maybe we want to use a paragraph to render the plot of the movie. Okay, so we have 3 items that we need to fill in. Yes? Right? With Guardians of the Galaxy. Right, so we want to render that dynamically. Right now, there's nothing in it, right? Just movie details. We don't have anything, right? So let's go fetch Guardians of the Galaxy and fill in those 3 blanks. Yes? So let's do that. So back in JavaScript, that was the AJAX that rendered the movie. Render the movies. Let's use Guardians. Render movie details, maybe movie details, and just implement it right here. Function. Again, this is the response. Okay. All right. So what do we need? Well, we need to go fetch all these elements. We need a reference to this, a reference to the poster, and a reference to the plot. Yes? So let's fetch that. Let's fetch that right here. Var title. Fetch me the element whose ID is title. Poster. Oops. And plot. Yes? Right? Okay, so we just have to update these. We're going to say title dot. I'm going to use HTML this time instead of append. What do we want to put in there? We want to put whatever the response comes back as, and then there's a title. Well, actually, before we do that, let's let's see if this even works, right? Console log response. Oh, there it is. There it is. This Guardians of the Galaxy. Notice it has much more information, right? Right. Of which we're going to just get the title. We get the title, the plot, and the poster. Yes. Right. So it's in the response right here, and we're going to say title HTML response title, and also the plot. Plot. Response plot. It's capital plot. The poster is a little bit different. The poster is a little bit different. A poster is a URL. See that? Right. And usually the way you update it in an HTML is that you would just do something like image, and you would say source equal, and then the URL. Correct? It's an attribute. It's a source attribute. It's not like you want to put something in here, right? You don't want to put the URL in here. That doesn't work, right? It has to be an attribute. So to do that, jQuery allows you to do that as well. You can say poster. I want to set the attribute source to be equal to the response.poster. Yes? Right? So we render that. Notice that indeed we get the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Right? We get the poster and the plot. Oops. Okay, make sense? Right? So that's a sneak preview, right? And what the instructions are going to go into much detail, right? Is certainly this, but how do you? We would like to be able to maybe have a form where you can type the title, right, and click on search. We would like to, if you click on one of these, right, take the IMDb and go fetch the details for that particular movie, right, and then render the bottom. And the next thing would be go fetch the database. Is there a movie already with that IMDb? Yes? If there is, are there any reviews? If there are, fetch them and render them at the bottom. Okay? Or somebody might want to create a new review, right? And there might be maybe a form for you to review the movie and type in a new review in there and save that to the database, right? So we'll do that progressively, and give you alternatives. We'll get you started, right? And then you will continue and follow your own path. Hopefully it'll be a little bit different for every team, as each one of you interprets the requirements slightly different from one to one. Right. Any questions? Yes.
General question. Do you have an exam next week?
That's what the calendar says. Not sure if it's going to be. I'm guessing it's going to be Thursday. Friday.
Okay. What is going to be on that?
Everything from the slides, everything that we covered. The requirements. No, none of that. Nothing programmatic. Nothing code based.
Are we going to have to know like really specific definitions of things, or just like general ideas? Like there's like different on all the different slides. There's like things that are defined. But
Yep.
some of them seem very, very specific.
Stop this.